Steve Harvey had heard thousands of surprising answers on Family Feud, but the answer waiting behind one woman's nervous smile was different. It was not rude, foolish, or meant to embarrass anyone. It was a truth her family had hidden for 27 years. Steve saw the fear in her husband's face, lowered his question card, and quietly warned her, "Before you say this, make sure you are ready for what comes after." The woman looked toward an elderly lady in the front row, pressed a small silver locket against her heart, and answered anyway. What followed stopped the game, divided one family for several painful minutes, and then brought an entire studio to its feet. Her name was Denise Carter. She was 52 years old, a school cafeteria manager from Dayton, Ohio, and the kind of woman who remembered which children needed an extra sandwich, even when they were too proud to ask. For 21 years, Denise had arrived at Jefferson Middle School before sunrise. She checked deliveries, planned meals, solved staff problems, and kept a drawer filled with granola bars for students who came to school hungry. She never called it charity. "Children learn better when their stomachs are quiet," she always said. Denise had been raised by her mother, Evelyn Brooks, a widow who worked nights at a nursing home and cleaned offices on weekends. Evelyn believed that dignity did not come from having plenty. It came from sharing what little you had. When Denise was 10, she watched her mother split one chicken into enough pieces to feed 3 neighborhood families after a winter storm. Denise never forgot it. Years later, when she became a mother herself, she tried to build her home around the same lesson. She and her husband, Marcus, had been married for 28 years. Marcus drove a city bus and coached youth baseball. Their oldest daughter, Kiara, was 27 and worked as a pediatric nurse. Their son, Jordan, was 23 and finishing graduate school. From the outside, the Carters looked steady and close. They had Sunday dinner at Evelyn's house, celebrated every birthday together, and settled disagreements before anyone went to bed. But one truth sat in the middle of that loving family like a locked box. Kiara was not Denise's biological daughter. 27 years earlier, Denise's younger sister, Rochelle, had given birth at 19. Rochelle was talented, funny, and restless. She dreamed of becoming a singer and had already been offered a chance to travel with a small gospel group. The baby's father disappeared before Kiara was born. Rochelle loved her daughter, but she was frightened by the life ahead of her. She had no money, no stable home, and no idea how to care for an infant while chasing work from city to city. Denise and Marcus had been married for only 1 year. They were young and struggling themselves. Yet they agreed to keep the baby for a few months, while Rochelle found steady work. A few months became a year. Then 2 years. Denise was the one who stayed awake through fevers, taught Kiara to walk, and carried her to church. Marcus became the father who checked closets for monsters and danced with her in the kitchen. When Kiara was almost 3, Rochelle signed legal papers allowing Denise and Marcus to adopt her. The decision was made quietly. Evelyn knew. 2 relatives knew. Everyone agreed that Kiara should be told when she was old enough to understand. But every year, the right moment seemed to move farther away. At 5, she was too young. At 10, she was sensitive. At 13, she was already struggling at school. At 16, she was applying for scholarships. At 21, she was starting nursing training. Each delay came from love, but fear was mixed into that love. Denise feared that Kiara would feel deceived. Marcus feared she would stop calling him dad. Evelyn feared the truth might split her daughters forever. Rochelle returned to Dayton when Kiara was 8. Her singing career had never taken off. She found office work, married briefly, and divorced. To Kiara, she was simply Aunt Rochelle, the exciting aunt who brought unusual birthday gifts, told funny stories, and sometimes disappeared for months. Rochelle never challenged the arrangement. She believed Denise had given Kiara the stable life she could not provide. Still, the secret became heavier with time. The silver locket Denise wore on Family Feud had belonged to Evelyn's mother. Inside it were 2 tiny photographs, one of Denise holding newborn Kiara, and one of Rochelle touching the baby's cheek in the hospital. Denise had carried those 2 pictures close to her heart for nearly 3 decades. They reminded her that motherhood could begin in more than one way, but also that truth delayed was still truth unpaid. The Carter family's road to Family Feud began with Jordan. He sent in an audition video without telling anyone. In it, he introduced the family as 5 people who can turn Sunday dinner into a championship argument. Producers loved their warmth. Denise was hesitant, but Evelyn, now 76, told her to go. "You spend your whole life making memories for everybody else," Evelyn said. "Go make one for yourself." Rochelle was invited too, but she refused. She said she could not stand under bright lights and pretend not to be Kiara's mother if the subject ever came up. Denise understood. That conversation was the closest they had come to confronting the secret in years. The family selected Denise, Marcus, Kiara, Jordan, and Marcus's younger sister Tasha for the team. Evelyn traveled with them and sat in the audience. Before taping, she held Denise's hands and looked directly into her eyes. "Secrets feel like protection when you first build them," she said. "After enough years, they become walls. Be careful which one this is." Denise knew exactly what her mother meant. She promised herself that the game would be fun, that nothing serious would happen, and that the truth could wait until they returned home. The studio looked even brighter than it did on television. Blue panels glowed behind the families. Music filled the room. Audience members clapped in rhythm as Steve Harvey walked onto the stage. The Carter family faced the Reynolds family from Georgia, a loud, cheerful group that immediately made everyone laugh. Steve greeted the Carters one by one. Marcus joked that driving a city bus had prepared him for anything because every passenger thinks they're the supervisor. Jordan said his mother could identify any child in school by the way they asked for extra fries. Kiara introduced herself as a pediatric nurse and said Denise was the reason she chose a job caring for children. That answer touched Denise more than anyone realized. "Your mama must be proud," Steve said. Kiara smiled. "She's my best friend." Denise smiled too, but her fingers moved toward the locket. The first rounds were lighthearted. The Carters won the opening face-off with the answer snoring. They lost the next round after Marcus guessed that people hid money inside a freezer. Steve stared at him for several seconds and said, "Sir, if you have money in your freezer, your biggest problem ain't this game." The audience laughed, and the tension inside Denise briefly disappeared. By the 4th round, the score was close. The Carters needed one strong round to stay alive. Steve walked to the podium and read the question. "We asked 100 married women, name something your husband might keep secret, because he thinks the truth would hurt the family." The Reynolds family won control. Their answers filled much of the board: money trouble, an old relationship, a lost job, and a bad medical report. After 3 strikes, the Carters had a chance to steal. They gathered close while the music played. Marcus suggested a child from before the marriage. Tasha suggested a family argument. Jordan said an addiction. But Denise could barely hear them. The word secret echoed in her mind. Then Steve approached for the answer. "Denise, this is for the steal. Name something a husband might keep secret because he thinks the truth would hurt the family." The safe answer was right there. She could repeat Marcus's suggestion. She could say another child, and allow the game to move forward. Instead, she glanced at Kiara, then toward Evelyn in the audience. Sometimes, Denise began slowly, a parent keeps secret that the person their child calls mom is really her aunt. The audience reacted with a mixture of laughter and surprise, because most people thought she was giving an oddly specific survey answer. Steve did not laugh. He watched Denise's face and noticed her trembling hand on the locket. "Hold on," he said. The music stopped. Kiara turned toward Denise. "What did you say?" Marcus's face lost its color. Jordan looked from his mother to his sister, confused. Tasha lowered her head because she understood immediately. Steve stepped closer to Denise. His voice changed from the big television voice to the calm voice of a man speaking to someone in trouble. "Miss Denise, is that just your answer, or are you trying to tell your family something?" Denise could not speak for several seconds. Her eyes filled with tears. Marcus whispered, "Not here." Steve heard him. He looked at Kiara, who was standing very still, then back at Denise. "Listen to me," Steve said gently. "This is a game show. These cameras are on. Before you say this, make sure you are ready for what comes after. Once you put a family truth into the world, you cannot pull it back. You don't owe television your private pain." Denise nodded. It was the warning of a man who understood that a dramatic moment might become a lifelong wound. For 1 second she nearly stopped. She thought about asking the producers to cut away, She thought about taking Kiara backstage and trying to explain everything in private. Then she saw Evelyn rise slowly from her seat. Her mother did not speak. She simply placed one hand over her own heart. Denise turned to Kiara. "He is right," she said. "But I have been waiting for the perfect time for 27 years, and every time I waited, I was really protecting myself. Not you. I am sorry, baby, but I need to tell you the truth." Marcus reached for Kiara's arm, but she stepped back. Denise opened the silver locket. "I gave birth to Jordan," she said, "but I did not give birth to you. Your biological mother is my sister, Rochelle." The studio became completely silent. Kiara stared at Denise as if she had heard words from another language. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Then she looked at Marcus. "Dad?" Marcus began crying before he answered. "I have been your dad since the first night you slept in our house." "That part is true. Every part of that is true." Kiara pulled her hand away. Who else knew? No one wanted to answer. She looked at Tasha. "You knew?" Tasha nodded through tears. Kiara looked at Jordan. His face showed the same shock as hers. "Did you know?" "No," he said immediately. "I swear I didn't." Finally, Kiara looked toward Evelyn. "Grandma?" Evelyn closed her eyes and nodded. The pain in Kiara's face changed the atmosphere of the entire room. This was no longer exciting television. It was a daughter discovering that the people she trusted most had rewritten the beginning of her life. Steve turned toward the cameras and raised his hand. "We're stopping." The floor manager hesitated, but Steve repeated himself. "Stop the game. Take us down." The stage lights softened. The applause signs went dark. Producers moved quickly, but Steve stayed beside the family. He asked the audience to remain respectful and then guided Kiara to a chair near the edge of the stage. "You don't have to perform for anybody," he told her. "You can be angry, you can cry, you can leave. All of that belongs to you." Kiara wiped her face. "I don't even know what to ask first." "Then don't ask everything at once," Steve said. "Ask the question your heart cannot move past." Kiara looked at Denise. "Did she not want me?" Denise dropped to her knees in front of her daughter. "She loved you. She was 19 and scared. She asked me to care for you while she found work. You became the center of our home. When you were 3, she signed the adoption papers because she believed we could give you stability. She did not throw you away. Then why did nobody tell me?" Denise did not defend herself. "Because I was afraid. Every year I found a reason to wait. I told myself I was protecting your childhood. Later, I told myself I was protecting your future. The truth is, I was afraid you would look at me differently. I was afraid love would not be enough once you knew." Kiara's voice hardened. "You made that choice for me." "Yes," Denise said. "And that was wrong." Those words mattered. There was no excuse, no demand for instant forgiveness. Denise accepted the wound she had caused. Steve sat in a second chair several feet away, giving them space while remaining close enough to help. Marcus stood behind Denise with tears running down his face. "I agreed to the secret," he said. "Your mother is not carrying this alone. I was afraid too. I thought being a good father every day could make the missing truth less important. It couldn't." Kiara stared at the locket. "Why do you have those pictures?" Denise handed it to her. Kiara opened it and saw the 2 young women with the same newborn child. In one photograph, Denise looked exhausted and protective. In the other, Rochelle looked terrified and full of love. "She asked about you constantly," Denise said. "Every birthday gift from Aunt Rochelle was chosen by your mother. Every time she left early, it was because staying close hurt her. She kept her promise not to interfere, but it cost her." Kiara pressed the locket into her palm. "Is she here?" Denise shook her head. She could not come. At that moment, a producer approached Steve and whispered in his ear. During the pause, the team had called Rochelle using the emergency contact number on the family's paperwork. She had answered from Dayton. She knew something had happened because Marcus had sent her a one-line text. The truth came out. Steve asked Kiara if she wanted to speak with her. Kiara hesitated. "Not on speaker for everybody." "Then it won't be," Steve said. He asked the crew to clear a small backstage room. Kiara went with Denise and Marcus. Evelyn followed slowly. The rest of the family waited on stage while the audience remained quiet. No one complained about the delay. Many people were crying. not because they expected a perfect reunion, but because they understood that love and betrayal could exist in the same room. The call lasted 38 minutes. Rochelle did not ask Kiara to call her mom. She did not blame Denise. She answered every question she could, and admitted the ones she could not. She said she had signed the adoption papers because she was unstable, and because Kiara already reached for Denise when she was frightened. She said she had convinced herself that silence was a sacrifice. Over the years, that sacrifice became cowardice. "I watched you grow from the safest distance they allowed me," Rochelle said through the phone. "I was proud of you every day. I also failed you by letting fear decide when you deserved the truth." Kiara asked the hardest question. "If I had never found out today, would you all have died with this secret?" Nobody answered quickly. Evelyn finally spoke. "Maybe, and that is why your pain is justified." Kiara cried harder after hearing the honest answer. But honesty, painful as it was, became the first solid ground beneath her feet. When the family returned to the stage, Kiara was holding Denise's hand. That did not mean everything was repaired. It meant she was not ready to let go. Steve stood and addressed her privately before the cameras resumed. "Do you want this removed from the show?" he asked. "I will support that request." Kiara looked at Denise, Marcus, and Evelyn. Then she looked out at the audience. "I don't want people thinking this ended in 5 minutes because we held hands," she said. "It didn't. I love my parents, but I am hurt. Both things are true. If this airs, I want that part to stay." Steve nodded. "That may be the wisest thing anybody has said today." The producers gave the family a choice: end their participation or continue after a longer break. Kiara surprised everyone by choosing to continue. "I don't want the worst surprise of my life to take every other memory from this day," she said. "We came here as a family. We are still a family. We are just a family with work to do." When the cameras came back, Steve did not pretend nothing had happened. He briefly told viewers that the show had paused for a private family matter, and that everyone had chosen to continue. He did not reveal more than Kiara had approved. Then he returned to the unanswered survey question. "Now," he said, looking at Denise, "you gave us the most specific answer in the history of this show." A gentle ripple of laughter moved through the audience. Let's see if the survey had any idea what was coming. The board buzzed. The answer was not there. Steve stared at the empty board. 100 people failed to prepare us for this family. The audience laughed again, and even Kiara smiled. The Reynolds family won the round, but the Carters stayed close enough to reach sudden death. Kiara faced the opposing captain. The question was simple: name someone people call when they need the truth. Kiara hit the buzzer first. "Mom," she said. The number one answer appeared. Denise covered her mouth and broke down. Kiara did not rush into her arms. Instead, she walked over slowly and placed the silver locket back around Denise's neck. "You are still my mom," she whispered. "But we are not hiding again. Never again," Denise promised. The Carters won the game. In fast money, Jordan scored 116 points. Kiara went second. Before Steve began, he asked if she was sure she wanted the pressure. "After today," she said, 20 seconds does not scare me." She answered with calm focus and earned the remaining points on the fourth question. Confetti fell. The family won $20,000, but no one treated the money as the day's greatest result. As the celebration ended, Steve asked for one more quiet moment. "I've learned something after many years of talking to families," he said. "Love does not become false because somebody made a fearful decision, but love also does not erase the damage. Truth without compassion can be cruel, and compassion without truth can become a lie. A strong family needs both." He turned to Kiara. "Young lady, you showed grace today, but grace does not mean pretending you are fine. Take your time, ask your questions, make them earn back the trust." Then he turned to Denise. "And you did something difficult. You told the truth after I warned you. But courage is not just confessing. Courage is staying for the consequences. Don't rush your daughter to forgive you because you finally became ready to be honest." Denise nodded. "I won't." The episode did not air immediately. The network's legal and standards teams reviewed the footage. More importantly, producers contacted Kiara several times over the next month. Each time, she was reminded that she could withdraw permission. After speaking with a family counselor, Rochelle, and her parents, Kiara agreed to let the story air with several private details removed. If one family watches this and decides not to wait 27 years, she said, then maybe our worst moment can prevent somebody else's. The weeks after taping were not easy. Kiara stayed with Jordan for several nights because she needed distance from Denise and Marcus. She missed 2 Sunday dinners. She ignored calls when she felt overwhelmed. Denise honored the boundaries, though every unanswered message hurt. Instead of demanding a conversation, she began writing a complete family history, adoption papers, photographs, medical records, letters Rochelle had written but never sent, and an honest timeline of every decision. Rochelle came to Dayton 3 days after the taping. She and Kiara met in a counselor's office, not at a dramatic family dinner. Their first meeting as biological mother and daughter lasted 2 hours. There were no instant embraces. Kiara asked why Rochelle could travel for music, but could not build a home for her child. Rochelle answered without polishing the past. She admitted that she had been selfish at times, frightened at others, and grateful that Denise stepped in. At the end, Kiara said, "I don't know what to call you now." Rochelle replied, "Call me Rochelle until your heart chooses something else. I won't take a title I didn't earn." That humility opened a door. When the episode aired, viewers expected the warning and confession to become another piece of loud television drama. Instead, the response was unusually thoughtful. Thousands of adopted adults shared their own experiences. Some said they had always known their story and felt secure. Others described discovering family secrets through medical tests or DINA websites. Parents wrote that the episode had given them courage to begin difficult conversations. The clip of Steve stopping the game reached millions of views, but the most shared line belonged to Kiara. "I love my parents, but I am hurt. Both things are true." Counselors used the sentence to explain that forgiveness and pain could exist together. At Jefferson Middle School, Denise worried that students and co-workers would judge her. Instead, a 7th-grade boy left a folded note on her desk. It said, "My dad told me a hard truth after your show. I was mad, but I am glad he told me. Thank you." Denise kept the note beside her family photographs. The $20,000 prize was divided only after the entire family agreed. Kiara used part of it to start a small emergency fund at her hospital for adoptive and foster families who needed travel, meals, or temporary lodging. Jordan paid a semester of tuition. Denise and Marcus used the rest to organize a reunion that included every relative who had known the truth, and every relative who had not. That reunion began with an apology, not a celebration. Denise stood before the family and explained what had happened. Evelyn admitted that her generation often believed painful truths should be buried for the sake of peace. "We confused silence with stability," she said. "They are not the same thing." No one was allowed to blame Kiara for her anger or pressure her to forgive. That rule came from Evelyn herself. 6 months later, Family Feud invited the Carters back for a short update. Kiara agreed on one condition: Rochelle would stand with them. When Steve welcomed the family, viewers saw Denise on one side of Kiara and Rochelle on the other. Marcus and Jordan stood close behind them. Evelyn sat in the front row wearing the proud expression of a woman who had lived long enough to correct one of her own mistakes. Steve asked Kiara how the family was doing. "Honestly?" she said. Steve smiled. "I believe honesty is the only answer this family is allowed to give now." The audience laughed. Kiara explained that she still called Denise Mom. She called Rochelle by her name, though once, during a late-night phone conversation, the word Mom had slipped out. Neither woman tried to force it to happen again. Kiara had also learned that her love for Denise did not require her to reject Rochelle, and her curiosity about Rochelle did not betray Denise. Denise said the counseling had changed her. "I used to think a good mother protected her child from pain," she said. "Now I understand that a good mother also trusts her child with the truth." Rochelle added, "And being a biological mother did not give me the right to demand closeness. Love is partly what you feel, but family is also what you consistently do." Steve listened, then showed the audience the folded note Denise had received from the student. The boy's identity remained private, but his father had given permission for the words to be shared. "This," Steve said, holding the copy, "is why the moment mattered. Not because a secret came out on television. It mattered because somebody watching chose not to repeat the mistake." 1 year after the original taping, Kiara and Denise started a community program called Both Things Can Be True. It connected families facing adoption disclosures, hidden parentage, and other difficult conversations with licensed counselors and peer support. They did not present themselves as experts. They presented themselves as people who had learned the cost of waiting. Evelyn attended every monthly meeting. She usually sat in the back and listened. When older relatives defended family secrecy as protection, she would raise her hand and say, "Peace built on missing truth charges interest." My family paid it for 27 years. The program grew slowly. A local church donated space. Kiara's hospital helped distribute information. Denise's school held a family resource night. Rochelle used her voice again, not as the singer she once dreamed of becoming, but as a speaker who could admit failure without asking strangers to excuse it. 2 years later, the Carters celebrated Kiara's 30th birthday at Evelyn's house. On the wall were photographs from every stage of her life. This time, the hospital photograph of Rochelle was not hidden inside a locket. It stood openly beside a picture of Denise carrying Kiara on her first day of kindergarten. Before dinner, Kiara gave Denise a small box. Inside was a new silver chain for the old locket. The original chain had weakened with age. "Why are you giving this back to me?" Denise asked. "Because it belongs with you," Kiara said. "Those pictures show where I came from and who raised me." I needed time to understand that neither picture cancels the other. Denise fastened the locket around her neck. Then she asked the question she had once been too afraid to ask. "Have you forgiven me?" Kiara thought carefully. "Yes, but forgiveness did not happen on that stage. It happened every time you answered a question you wished I would not ask. It happened every time you let me be angry without calling me ungrateful. It happened because you stayed for the consequences." Those words returned Denise to Steve's warning. "Before you say this, make sure you are ready for what comes after." At first, Denise believed the warning was about embarrassment, public judgment, and the immediate shock of confession. Later, she understood its deeper meaning. Telling the truth was one moment. Living truthfully afterward was the real test. Steve Harvey would later mention the Carter family when asked about the most difficult moments he had witnessed on television. He never called Denise's confession perfect television. He called it a reminder that entertainment has limits. "When people trust you with a family moment," he said, "you have to remember they still have a life when the lights go off." For the Carters, the lights did go off. The audience went home. The clip stopped trending. New episodes took its place. But the family did not return to the old silence. Their Sunday dinners became more honest. Sometimes that honesty created arguments. Sometimes it created relief. It always created something real. Denise still worked at Jefferson Middle School, still kept granola bars in her drawer, and still arrived before sunrise. Kiara remained a pediatric nurse, and became especially attentive to adopted children asking questions about their medical histories. Marcus continued driving his bus and coaching baseball. Rochelle stayed in Dayton and built a careful, patient relationship with the daughter she had loved from a distance. Jordan, who had unknowingly started the journey with an audition video, joked that he would never submit the family for another game show without a full background check. And Evelyn, the woman who once helped build the wall of silence, became the person most committed to taking it down. The Carter family did not become stronger because the truth caused no damage. The truth caused real pain. They became stronger because they stopped asking one person to carry that pain alone. Denise accepted responsibility. Marcus admitted his fear. Rochelle faced her absence. Evelyn confronted the beliefs of her generation. Kiara claimed the right to decide what forgiveness would look like. That was the true turnaround. Not confetti, prize money, or a viral clip. It was a family learning that love should never require a person to surrender ownership of her own story. On the day Kiara's community program opened its second location, the family gathered for a photograph. Denise stood beside her. Rochelle stood on the other side. Marcus, Jordan, and Evelyn filled the row behind them. Kiara held the silver locket open so both tiny pictures could be seen. Someone asked her what she remembered most clearly from Family Feud. Was it the shock? Steve's warning? The audience? Winning? Fast money? Kiara smiled. "I remember answering that last question," she said. "Name someone people call when they need the truth." I said Mom. At the time, I wasn't sure whether I still believed my own answer. Now I do. Not because mothers never make mistakes, but because a mother should be willing to face the truth with you after she does. There was a time when families believed silence could protect love. The Carters learned that silence could only postpone the cost. Denise said the truth anyway, and for a while it seemed as if her confession might break everything she had spent a lifetime building. Instead, because she stayed humble, because Kiara was given room to hurt, and because every person chose responsibility over pride, the truth became the beginning of a more honest kind of family. Steve's warning had been wise. Denise's decision had been risky. Kiara's grace had been extraordinary. But the lasting lesson belonged to all of them. Love is not proven by hiding every painful thing. Sometimes love is proven by telling the truth, accepting what comes after, and staying long enough to rebuild together.